In this video, we're going to be talking about sequences of transformations. By now, you should have learned what a rotation, a reflection, and a translation are. And now we're going to be looking at, okay, so how do we get from one image into another image? How did we get from here to there? What sequences of transformations do we need to do to be able to get from this image and land at this image in any sequence that you can think of? That includes transformations such as reflection, rotation, or translation. So I'm going to run through 4 examples with you guys really quick and give you guys multiple solutions. For any of these problems, there's more than one solution. Any of the solutions that you can think of are 100% correct and true as long as it lands where it should land accordingly. For example, let's run through this one really quick. So all the original images I colored yellow and all the new images I colored pink. So we're trying to get from the yellow to get to the pink image from here to there, or in other words, from the pre-image to the image. So I took the liberty of tracing the image here, which is, if you trace it with patty paper here, I have image ABCD, which is a quadrilateral, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I get from that image to the pink image? So if you look at the pink image, it looks like one of the things we can do is flip it. So it looks like it needs to be flipped along the y-axis, because if you notice, this looks like it's backwards. So it looks like it's a reflection of that image. So what I'm going to do is, one of the possible solutions is a reflection across the y-axis. So I'm going to make that line that represents the y-axis, and I'm going to flip it or reflect it over the y-axis. So bam, there we go. So we had our original image, and now we have our new image here. But we're not done yet, right? Because it doesn't land exactly where we want it to land. So the other thing we could do now is translate it one space or one unit downwards so we can land at the appropriate spot of quadrilateral A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. So that's one of my solutions. One of my solutions is first reflection over the y-axis, and then a translation one unit downwards. So that's one of my answers. That's one sequence of transformation that I can use to get from there, from that image to the new image. Okay, now we're going to go over another solution possible. Like I said, this is not the only solution. It's just one of the solutions that you can come up with. There's many ones you can come up with, and they're all right as long as you can justify it. So let's see, how else can we get from this image to that image? So what if, instead of flipping it over the y-axis, what if I flip it over the line x equals -2 to start off with? X equals -2 is actually the one that runs vertically through the x-axis at the number -2. Again, if this is my origin, right, this is my x and y axis. So this is x equals -2, that vertical line here. So I'm going to flip it over that vertical line. And now this is where I end up, right? So this is my x equals -2 line. But the only problem is that I'm way over here. I need to get way over there. So if you notice that little top corner here, I want to get it to over there. All I need to do is move it to the right 4 units and then 1 space down. So if you count from this corner here, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right, and then 1 down, which means that this is going to slide 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 down. And then we end up at our desired location. So 2 solutions. One of them was reflection over the y-axis, right? And then we slided 1 unit down. Another one could have been reflection over the line x equals -2, and then translated 4 to the right and then 1 down. Either way, you get to where you want to be using a sequence of transformations. And like I said, there's many answers, so don't feel like those 2 are the only ones that you could have. Let's try this one, for example. So we're trying to get from the yellow triangle to the pink triangle. How do we get there? So what sequence of transformations can we use to get from here to there? So let's see. One of the things we can do, so what I did is I traced it, right, with patty paper. So my image, my triangle image ABC is right there. I'm going to be sketching out the x and y axis so I can know where my center is. And there's a couple of things we can do here. One of the things we could do is, first of all, slide it 2 units down. So translate it 2 units down. And then what we can do is rotate it to the left 90 degrees. So let's try that. So first let's translate it 2 units down. So 1 unit, 2 units. And if you notice, now I'm there. But now I want to rotate it, and I want to rotate it across the origin. So once I have that, my center of rotation will be the origin. I want to move that to the left, and I will move that to the left 90 degrees. And if I move it exactly 90 degrees, it should end up at that specific location. So one possible answer. So run through it again really quick. So we start at the original image, right? Traced it. I want to move that 2 spaces downwards. So that's 1 space, 2 spaces. And then I want to turn it over the origin or the center at 90 degrees. And that's going to be to the left. So if I just make that little arrow again where the center is, if I turn that 90 degrees counterclockwise and then stop where I should, then I end up at my new triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. So that's one solution. Let's say I don't want to do that solution. You guys are brighter than I am, so you want to come up with something different. Let's say you want to first turn it 90 degrees first. So the first thing you do is turn it 90 degrees. So that means that my center of rotation will be right here, right at the origin. I want to turn that counterclockwise 90 degrees. So I turn it and then stop right about there. Now the only problem is that I'm not where I should be, right? So I want to be a little more to the right. So I'm going to actually translate it to the right 1, 2 spaces. So 2 solutions for this. Again, I'm giving you 2. You can come up with as many as you can, and those are all correct. One of the things we could do is first translate it 2 units down and then turn it 90 degrees to the left or counterclockwise. Or we could have rotated 90 degrees to the left counterclockwise first and then moved it to the right 2 spaces. So either way, you'll get the same answer. So I'm pretty sure you're getting the idea by now, but let's run through some more examples so we can extend this video and then have more examples shown for you guys, and then we'll be done. So let's say we have this, right? So we have the triangle that I traced, and I want to convert that triangle into the pink one. How do we do that? So one of the things we could do is we can flip it over the x-axis and then the y-axis, or in either order, it's fine. So I'm going to flip it over the x-axis. So flip it over the x, and I end up there. And you're just like, okay, great. So we have a reflection over the y-axis. But now it looks like it's backwards. It's not really where I want it to be. So now I'm going to flip it over the y-axis. And then it actually ends up being directly on top of where we want it to be. So 2 possible answers is first, I think I may have said it wrong initially, but first you want to flip it over the x-axis. So that way it is on this coordinate plane. And then we want to flip it over the y-axis. That way it can be directly on top of the triangle that we wanted. Okay? So another thing you can do is if you're like, okay, well, why am I going to flip twice when I could just do one single transformation and get there where I need it to be? Another thing you could do is just rotate it, right? So turn it either to the left 180 degrees. So we can say, okay, I'm going to rotate this to the left 180 degrees. So that's 90. And then another 90 would be 180. And I end up being exactly where I want to be. So that's one rotation of 180 degrees, either to the left, or if you want to be creative, you can also go to the right. It'll end up being in the exact same spot. So either or. Or if you were a smart aleck and be like, ha ha ha, Mr. Nunes, I have two transformations for you. You could say, okay, you rotate it first 90 degrees and then another 90 degrees. That is perfectly okay. So you can say rotate to the left 90 degrees. So bam, you're right there. And then you do another 90 degrees and bam, you're right there. So those are your 2 transformations. That is perfectly okay too. So you're not wrong. You're just thinking outside the box. Last one that we're going to do. Let's say you have triangle A, you want to get to triangle B. And you want to get there in any way you can possible, right? So we have my trace triangle A, and I have the little origin or the center that I have. Okay. And then I want to get from the yellow triangle to the pink triangle any way I can. So one of the things that I can do, I can move this up 2 spaces and then flip it over a vertical line. So let's say I move this up, right? Because this is a little lower than that. So I want to move this up 2 spaces. So it's going to be moved up 1 and then 2. So this is where I end up. Now, the only problem is that it's too far out. I want to end up here. So another thing that I can do is flip it over a vertical line. And if I count the distance, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, right? So the halfway mark, 1, 2, would be this line right here. And this line right here happens to be the line in our coordinate grid, x equals 1, right? Because it goes through the x-axis at positive 1. So another thing we can do after we move it up 2 spaces is we can flip it over this line, which is the line x equals 1. And then what do you know? We end up being at the exact location where we want it to be. So that's one solution. We can move it up 2 spaces, flip it over the line x equals 1. Or if you didn't like that solution and you want to figure out another method of getting from this original triangle to the next triangle, you could also flip it over the y-axis and then move it. So you could take this triangle and you can flip it over the y-axis. So take the triangle, flip it over the y-axis, and then you can slide this, in this case, 2 spaces up and then 2 spaces to the right. And that'll be your final triangle after the sequence. Hope this video was helpful, and talk to you guys in the next one.